It's always in the back of your mind. For me, and it's like, buy a yellow car and all of a sudden all you see is yellow cars. Your wife gets pregnant, all you see is pregnant women everywhere.
I had made some great connections with my clients and I opened my mouth at the right time.
But then that screws up my discipline and the rest of that.
Welcome to Money Mavericks, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of finance, investment, and entrepreneurship.
I'm Kirk Drake.
And I'm Darryl Hicks. Together, we're here to bring you the latest insights, expert opinions from the trailblazers who are redefining success in the financial world.
The challenge I always find is the values conflict, right? So I want to be a good dad and I want to work out, right? And so then that manifests itself. Well, my kids can't necessarily work out with me in the morning and they want to work out with me in the afternoon, right? But then that screws up my discipline and the rest of that. So which do I pick? Do I pick going to the gym first thing in the morning without the kids and then not being able to hang out with them in the afternoon to work out and teach them how to squat, how to deadlift, whatever? Or do I pick the afternoon knowing that the afternoon there's a much higher likelihood that it gets canceled or something? And that's where I always find this like epic struggle of discipline versus a core value of where they're conflicting in some way.
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy is always put my own mask on first. So in that situation, I would be like, work out in the morning and then coach them in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then if they cancel, because they probably will, because that's what happens with my kids too. Right. They're like, oh yeah, we're going biking. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not going to work out because we're going biking. And then we don't go biking.
and then you're like, oh.
How about I fix this problem? I'm going to work out anyway. And if you want to go biking, I should have the energy. We're going to go biking.
Yeah.
And, but I think that's the whole thing is, in life, how do you find ways to figure it out? It's not easy because like I coach a lot of people on my fitness program and the emails are like, so am I eating something different than my family is? More than likely, because I don't know what your family's eating, but if it doesn't look like this, then probably. They're like, oh, well, that's not cool. I go, okay, so now you have a decision. Like, do you care more to have parity of the meal in front of you as your family? Or do you know what I mean? Because like that's all I'm asking. I'm not saying don't eat with your family. I'm just saying what's on your plate is different than what there's on their plate. And guess what happens if you do that? They're gonna go, well, what is that?
Right.
So like all of a sudden now my wife eats our meal plan, and then my kids eat less of because we don't have it. If you don't have a dessert, then they don't even think about it. So it's kind of like the whole like. You'll influence other people just through your actions.
I think I love this analogy, and it's the one that I use too, of like put your own mask on first, right? So for me,
it sounds selfish, but it's so important.
No, but it's really important because we've talked about this like a ton of times. Like your kids are going to follow your actions way more than what you say. So
monkey
be
see,
that
monkey do.
That's right. Be that lighthouse, right?
Yeah.
So for me, like my workouts are at the time that I can fit them into my schedule. They're a non-negotiable, and there's absolutely nothing that will cause me to cancel those workouts.
Are you a better dad afterwards?
100% I am.
What a crazy idea.
I know, it's amazing. And I invite my kids, my two boys, because they both have expressed an interest now in coming to the gym with me, my 17-year-old and my 11-year-old. And I'm like, great, well, these are the times that I'm going to be at the gym. Oh, well, that doesn't work for me. Okay, it has happened every once in a while that I was able to shift a time around to a time where they could come with me. But then there's also plenty of times where I'm like, my schedule is loaded. I'm locked in. This is the time I'm going to be there. But you know what? Like, I'm going to create a little workout routine for you. And but more often than not, they're able to look. Their schedule is a little less demanding than mine as a CEO and everything. But they'll find the time and they'll come with me, and then it's great. Now Tristan's like got his buddies he's going to the gym with, and I wrote out programs for them, and they're off and going. So,
but it also shows them that you prioritize yourself.
Yeah, which I think is a great dad thing.
Yeah.
It could be dangerous too.
Yeah.
Like
if you take advantage of it. Like if you're selfish about it, it's just even the date nights, right? So like sometimes like partners are like, oh, I feel bad. We haven't seen our kids in a while. It's like, no, this is our time. Yeah. I want my kids to see the byproduct of what I believe a relationship should look like. Yeah. Right. I want them I don't think I see my parents show any affection to themselves ever. Yeah. Like when isn't that crazy?
So go back to the frameworks. What was your framework for finding Renee?
So funny part is I didn't know I was a framework guy until I met people like Darryl, and they're like, man, you're such a framework guy. And I'm like, you don't think like this or act like this? He's like, not as much. And I'm like, so I will tell you the Renee framework. And so
of course there's one. Of course the answer is like there is.
There is, because it came from, it always comes from challenges and pain. So I used to be engaged. I was 27 and I was a workaholic, and came home and found out that she didn't share the same desire for work as I did. And she left. And it was one of the hardest times in my life. Oh, for sure to that point, one of the hardest times in my life. And what was beautiful about it in hindsight is it created almost like a full, like clear, like everything I had a belief around was a reset because my world shattered. Like finally successful in business, finally making money. We just bought a house together. We're getting married in, I think 6 weeks, and then the whole thing just shattered. So I had an opportunity to kind of go back to kind of basics and say, well, who do I want to be in a relationship and who do I want to be in a relationship with? And I started reading some of these books, you know, The Way of the Superior Man and a bunch of others.
Oh, great book.
Yeah. Like just, and again, I would have never gone on the journey to even read this kind of literature had I not had a problem that I was like, ouch, don't really want to feel that again. And the funny part is for 6 months, I thought maybe this is just the Dan archetype and I shouldn't be in a relationship. Like that was a crazy thought. Knowing how much I love Renee and my boys, that was a decision of, hey, maybe I should just be the rich, fun uncle and not, because I didn't want to hurt somebody the way I'd hurt that person. Like I was just not a good person to be in a relationship with. Very selfish. And so eventually I did some work, and one of the key exercises that they recommended, I don't remember who it was or what book, was to just write down and get really intentional about who you want in a partner, right? Knowing that no one person will ever meet all check boxes. But at least now you know, because I think what I was doing before is it was almost like by default, not by design. Yeah. You know, and not to take away from the person I was engaged to. She's incredible, but it wasn't because that's what I was looking for. So you think about who I'm married to now and who I was engaged to, 2 different people. Like she worked at the government. Like just on that front, let's talk about that, right? She still lives in the place that I live. I've moved 4 times.
She's there to help.
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience for me to understand. So the framework was, I wrote down exactly what I was looking for. I was actually talking to someone about this yesterday, so it was very vivid. Like, you know, athletic, family values, adventurer, blah blah blah, entrepreneur, and then I'm into tall blondes. You know, so tall, blonde, blah blah. Again, not saying it has to look like this. Did I date shorter brunettes? Yes, but I knew exactly what I was looking for, and then I gave myself time to not jump into a relationship, not date a lot, but just be okay being alone too. That was a big thing. Like I wasn't okay being by myself. And that was a thing, some work I did through that journey. And then it's funny because when I met her, I didn't know she was a one, obviously, in the first time I met, but I knew she was like definitely met that criteria.
Because you had written it down, right?
I wrote it down, man, and I looked
what
for
you're
it.
looking for when you're not.
I'll tell you, because this whole back there, I'll introduce you to Tina, a bunch of 20-year-olds, right? And they're like, you know, a lot of them are like trying to find a partner. I just found a target rich audience. So it's like, where do you find a target rich audience of entrepreneurial women? Well, guess what? There's entrepreneurial events. Like I met Renee at an event.
There you go.
You know?
Yeah, I think that and we've talked about this before too, the importance of like the 3-year vivid vision. It's uncanny how much of that stuff will come true as long as you write it down and kind of like it's always in the back of your mind. For me, it's like, you know, buy a yellow car and all of a sudden all you see is yellow cars. Your wife gets pregnant, all you see is pregnant women everywhere. They were always there. It's just now you're attuned to it. You see it. Some people describe it as that the universe just wants to give you whatever it is that you want, but you have to decide and you have to kind of throw it out there.
Dude, if you don't have a goal, how are you supposed to score?
Yeah, exactly. There's no, when you don't have a destination, there's no favorable wind, right? There's all these cliches. You have to set your sails and say, this is where I'm going, and you run into rough water and you pivot. But like writing down what it is that you actually want.
I don't know if I ever told you this. When I first met Kimberly, I asked her what she wanted to do, and it was before going to law school. And she's like, I want to be a wine lawyer. She's like, but I can't figure it out because wine law is this really boutique thing, and none of the big firms have it. And I'm going to Duke Law and went and worked for a big firm. And fast forward 20 years, right? And we end up in Oregon in the middle of the pandemic. We've started a winery, and someone posted a job for someone who has in-house and corporate experience who knows something about wine regulation. And now she's a wine attorney for 1-800-Flowers. Like,
no way.
Totally bizarre way of manifesting the whole thing.
But she said it.
But she did nothing on her own to get there. Yeah. Right. It was just simply the sequence of things.
How many stories do we hear like that though? Like, and again, don't worry about how it works or why it works. Just understand, trust the process, and know that it works. Get out there and.
But she never said it. That part fascinates me. She never said it again after to other people.
No.
Wow.
It was just something she said. I never really thought about it again. I didn't think when we moved to Oregon and started a winery that she would start making wine and go back to law, right? And so, and she's never been happier, right? To be fair, cool. I joke her happiness goes from a -3 to a 7 because she's part British. She's not capable of an 8, 9, or 10.
I love that you have a -3 in your rating. I'm going to start using that.
So going into kind of more of the money things, if you were to think of maybe your life in like 3 stages at this point of like no money, bare bones, some money, and lots of money, right? How has your view and way you approach money changed?
It's so fun. Yeah, it's so different. Because I have conversations about this all the time. I coach some of the, I just before this call, coach a guy that does 600 million a year, self-funded, very wealthy, and the thing I try to teach him that I had to discover the hard way is none of the external possessions are going to make you feel anything. So the beauty of it. So when I think about like money today, it's an amplifier of who you are. And we hear this all the time, but most people don't realize that everything they seek, as soon as you want something, you're saying that's outside of you. And anybody that studies spirituality realizes like you are already everything you desire. You just have to figure out how to activate that. And it doesn't require anything external. So when it comes to wealth for me, what's shifted is less strategic and more aligned. So, and because it's less strategic and more aligned, it multiplies. So that's the part that, and I read this a long time ago, that most wealth is created between 40s and 60s for most people, regardless if you're an entrepreneur or not. So I got really excited because I learned that if I could align with my true desires, and that's tough. Like I teach people how to get into their true place of decision-making from an embodied desire and knowledge. It might sound subtle, and I'll show you guys later in the studio, but I walked in one day and they moved the desks around and the couches and stuff, and it just felt off. And I told my GM, Todd, I said, hey dude, I really liked it before the other way. And I know you probably did it for a reason, but it just feels, so like even my angel investing or desires, like I've gotten better at discernment.
Well, being in touch with that moment of like, I can't explain why, I just don't like it.
Yes,
right?
and check this out, because a friend of mine said it best to me one time. I was talking to her about it, and she's like the most enlightened spiritual person I know. She goes, when you snowboard, you've been doing it for a long time. I said, yeah. She goes, do you like sit there and think about heel, toe, edge as you're snowboarding? I was like, no. She goes, how do you snowboard? I go, I just let it go. I mean, Kirk, you've come on my trip. I know it didn't end well for you, but as if I wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah, no worries.
But on that trip, like it is flowy and fun. And she goes, how about you just try operating from that place? She goes, I think you've been businessing long enough. And I was like, oh, snap, you're right. Like I'm still trying to go heel, toe, edge. And I didn't give myself permission to sit in my knowingness, my beingness, and then operate from that point. So anybody that's seen my life evolve over the last few years, that's all I shifted, which is I've gotten really honest with myself about what's aligned with me, not less necessarily what's strategic about me. And guess what? It turns out from a wealth creation point of view.
That's huge.
Yeah, because then you're truly aligned in the activities of the things you say yes to.
Right.
And the no's are easier. You don't even entertain them. It's a multiplier effect, not a linear. And most people, I think, create wealth linearly. And when you can start giving yourself permission to really tune into that, especially if you've had a career at it. See, I had been doing it for 25 years. So I just forgot to just get into flow and to trust in the process.
I think it's such an important lesson. What's hiding like in plain sight in what you just said is the value of really knowing yourself, trusting yourself, and letting it be. I was hanging out with I won't mention the name because I don't have permission to, but an A-list celebrity who does shows in New York on a regular basis. And he was speaking to a group of entrepreneurs, and he told this story about how he would go to the head of house at the show in New York and say, make sure that the first 6 rows are filled, because that's all I can see when the lights are on. And I don't want any empty seats in the first 6 rows because it messes with my head. And I want to feel like every time I'm presenting to a full house. And one of his friends criticized him and says, well, that's pretty narcissistic. Like, you're only going to do a good show if it's to a full house. It sounds like maybe you got some work that you need to do. And he's like, you know what? You're probably right. And I probably will do the work so that it doesn't bother me as much. But for now, it's okay. I know myself and I know that this is what I need. And I'm going to give my best possible show if all the seats that I can see are full.
On Money Mavericks, we don't just talk about making money. We explore the innovative strategies and bold decisions that drive real change. Whether you're an experienced investor, a budding entrepreneur, or just someone looking to make smarter financial choices, we've got something for you.
Every week, we're going to sit down with industry leaders, visionaries, and mavericks who share their journeys, challenges, and breakthroughs, from contrarian views on market trends to the secrets behind building a successful startup. You get an inside look at what it takes to thrive in today's economy.
And we promise to keep it real, engaging, and most importantly, actionable. No jargon, no fluff. Just straightforward conversations that you can apply to your own financial journey.
So get ready to challenge your thinking, expand your knowledge, and take control of your financial future. This is Money Mavericks,
where we turn financial dreams into realities and mavericks into legends.
Best-selling author and all this kind of stuff. It's quite the journey when we look you up on LinkedIn. But how did you kind of get started through this meandering path that brought you to where you are now?
A meandering path is a pretty good word for it, right? I think, it's great. I'm in my 50s, and it's great when, you're young and you see these people that have, they are on a target and they're like, hey, I've always wanted to be a doctor. I'm a doctor. And you look up 30 years later and that's it. And it would be great if life were that linear, but it's not. And I'm the father of 3 20-something kids, and you see how, them go through it as well. But my journey, it goes back to Texas. I'm a fifth generation Texan. I grew up in West Texas, far West Texas. I've been a study of contrast my whole life. So West Texas, near New Mexico, the dirt, I can go cowboy in boots all the time, but I also played big time tennis growing up and traveled the world and was one of those child prodigies that moved away at 14 and lived off in an academy. And I'm buddies with people who are, the guy that just won the silver in the Olympics. His coach is one of my best friends. And so it's this yin and yang of, do you go country club or do you go NASCAR and dirt? And it's kind of always been my way of being. And I'm fortunate in that regard. And I ended up played tennis at University of Oklahoma, and I was your typical athlete frat boy. The meandering path started there. And
very good question on that. Is University of Oklahoma like a tennis powerhouse? I don't really know anything about tennis, so
it's not Stanford or anything like that. But I mean, it's at the time we did pretty well. I mean, look, I'm going to date myself here totally. We were the Big 8 at the time. Okay, so you go Big 8, Big 12. Now everybody's in the SEC. I enjoyed it. Okay. It was good. I was competitive. I played. To be a D1 athlete in anything, I think, especially at a big school like that, was good. I was there during the Bosworth Switzer days and in the middle of all that good stuff. But after I graduated, I went to work for one of the very, very, very early internet companies. And, back when, the stuff that we get for free now, there were only 3 people. It was LexisNexis. It was a division of Dow Jones and another company that sold, newspaper archive info. That's what I did. It was my first job out of school. And I found myself at 22, 23 in New York City, way over my head, dealing with senior and EVP level folks, some of the biggest companies in the world and media and other things. And the benefit was the technology was so new, they didn't know what was going on. And that's fine. I knew just a little more than them. But point being, I got a real world education in what to do, not to do, the type of business people you want to be around, how you negotiate. And, it was every day I'm getting my ass handed to me, and I kept a journal, So I didn't start off to be a writer, and I just kept a journal of like, okay, number 1, don't sleep with your coworkers. B, here's how you respect employees. I mean, it was just the basics. And at the time there was Gen X was becoming popular as a term. And I think Time Magazine did a cover story called The 20-somethings and Slackers. And I had made some great connections with my clients, and I opened my mouth at the right time. And I had an idea because no one had written anything catering, it was all slacker type stuff, but no one had written a business book or catered to people who were ambitious. And so I had an idea for it, and I opened my mouth to some folks I knew. One was an executive at CNBC, and the other was a writer for Fortune. And they said, you're too smart for what you're doing. You'll never own this company. What do you really want to do? And I said, I've had a crazy idea for a book and consulting. They opened a door for me and introduced me to a woman that at the time had started the literary department for William Morris. I'm 26 years old. And I wrote 11 pages from my journal. And you made a few videos from my friends at ABC and some other places on me speaking. Then a 40-page marketing plan. And I got a book deal with Random House at 26. And that's before the now everybody self-published look. I mean, you think of an idea, you're suddenly a published author, which I think is a total load of crap. And, Random House cut me a deal for more money than I ever made in my life. And I wrote the book called Job Smarts for 20-somethings, which is the first business book for Gen X. And it became a bestseller, hit 5 on the Wall Street Journal's list. And the rest is history. It kind of set me off on being that voice for professionals of our age. And it led me to really helping be a career voice. And I worked with companies like Southwest Airlines, American, PwC, Dell, and others in creating recruiting programs for them. I created Southwest Airlines' first internship program and helped to develop their college recruiting program. And I did that for a number of years. I was doing that and I was speaking, but basically I was an OG influencer. Before being an influencer was cool, that's what I was doing. And, doing the speaking circuit and all of that. And my former wife, we can talk about this, don't marry money. Bad deal. I married a rich girl. And that was a whole thing of like, well, this is great. And I was making a boatload of money, but can you get like a steady job? Can you do this? And I ended up, like a lot of people around 2000, I raised some money and quickly burned a company in the ground in a few months around the dot-com bubble. And I had to go get a job. So I went to work for the Wall Street Journal. I'd written for them. I'd done some things there and went to work for them. And what ended up being the worst job of my life, working with people who hamming a punch a clock. I remember my first day, they flew me to New York. I'm a director level for Dow Jones, Wall Street Journal. I sit in this room with 7 other directors. The guy leaned over next to me. I said, how long you been here? He goes, 35 years. At the time I go, and I came out of my mouth. I go, damn, that's longer than I've been alive. And that was my career at Dow Jones. So I wrote a few more books. I wrote a book called Career Comeback. That was the idea of emotional side of job loss. And because we do wrap so much of ourselves up into our work, and that did very well and published all over the world. And it was time for me to leave. And someone asked me to go into executive search. I thought that's where you go if you can't, if you either you're an old man who knows a lot of people, or you can't sell used cars, you go into executive search and recruiting. And I found the right guys, a bunch of former athletes, and I went to work and became partner at one of the top 10 search firms in the country and ran their executive search practice in healthcare for a number of years and proceeded to do that and loved every minute of it until I got burned out, got divorced, had the midlife crisis. And about 6 years ago, I want to get back to my true passion, which was writing, speaking, creating. And kind of like I did with all of my books, and like all of us, it doesn't matter where you went to school, how much money you make, what you do, we all matriculate life in similar ways. And that's why I came up with the idea for advanced adulting and helping grown-ass adults navigate midlife, the things that we all experience, but we never really think about, because when you're 27 and you're starter marriage, you don't think, well, I wonder what it's going to be like to be divorced and dating again at 52. Or I wonder what it's going to be like to figure out what I want to be for the 3rd time. Or when you have success and then you fail and swing and miss for the first time, or when your parents get old, all of those things. That's advanced adulting. And I've been doing that and working with people all over the world and helping them, coach them courses. And it's been an exciting time.
That's amazing. I love this point that you made about how it's so common for our identity to start to get wrapped up in business. This is a common problem theme that I see with founders, especially when they have their first exit. I mean, just a few weeks ago, I was hanging out with a friend of mine who I've known for many years. And to me, like when you build a business from scratch and someone comes in and says, hey, this thing that you built, I think it's really cool and really valuable, and I want to give you a whole bunch of money for it.
Right.
It's one of the most flattering and amazing things that a founder can go through. Not all founders want to exit out of their business, but even just to have someone come in and offer you that is really huge. And for the founders who do pull the trigger on that, I mean, I was just talking with a buddy of mine, he completely surprised himself with how emotional he got when he was telling the story. And he said the most random things were the hardest, like having to give up my email address at the domain of my company because I'm no longer there. And and he literally like teared up and started to get all choked up about it. And of course, it's not about the email address. What's it about? It's about the fact that for as long as he's known, as long as he can remember, that's who he's been, is the CEO and the founder of this business. And who are you now when you don't own that business anymore? And a lot of people don't really think about that. And again, so you talk about like first world problems, champagne problems, like all of us should be so lucky that someday we're having to deal, but it's a real crisis for a lot of people as they're going through this. So how do you what are some of your thoughts on that, and how you've helped to the extent that you've helped some people going through that? I'd love to kind of hear about it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, it's not to be cliche about it, but it extends from whether it's some sort of life achievement, a business achievement like a company exit, and also with if you really want to extend it, it can go with being a parent or your life as well. I don't know when people are going to be watching this, but the Olympics are going on, and I forget the girl's name. Is it the Cunningham, the girl that won the 200, okay? Won the gold medal, and they were asking her afterwards, "Oh, this is great. This is fantastic." She goes, "Yeah, but you don't know what went into it. You weren't there behind the scenes, the weeks, the years of me training and sacrificing and going through all of this." And I loved that. And that hits because whether it just to, what you're speaking about, someone who creating a company and having an exit, that's your hallmark moment. That's the validation, the pinnacle, but you weren't there when it's, you're in the back room and you're struggling and can I make payroll? Can I get a customer? Can I do any of this stuff? Are we gonna have to fold it? And you hate those moments you're going through it, and you love those moments because that's what made it getting here. And I say that from, the girl in the Olympics, whether it's selling a company or even, I go back to my kids in their 20s and, damn Facebook, they show you those memories every day, and you look at that and you go, God, that was 10 years ago. God, he's there, that's a grown ass man. It was my child now. And you forget those things that you were frustrated with, whether they were a pain or a nuisance or whatever. And now I think those are the times you miss and you reflect upon and you go, and it is a corny Hallmark movie, and it's spot on target in every aspect.
Yeah, what's been interesting to me about that is sometimes, so it can be, you have that sense of loss even when you succeed and sell the company,
right?
Just as much as you do when you shut it down, right? Like, which is the fascinating part to me is it really is the journey that ends up being important in the memory and the satisfaction. And to me, yeah, it's nice to have the bank account and the rest of that, but that actually, I haven't found that is all that cathartic for the loss that you have to go through.
I think it's interesting too. I mean, in almost anything. I mean, and whether it's, business, or we'll use writing books as an example, we always tend to think, whether it's realistic or accurate or not, that, it's going to be hockey stick growth. Hey man, it's always going to be like this. We're always kicking ass. We're always going to hit numbers. We're always going to grow.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Money Mavericks. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.
Stay connected with us on social media and visit our website for exclusive resources, episode transcripts, and more.
Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, making smart moves, and turning your financial dreams into realities.
You've been listening to Money Mavericks, where Mavericks become legends.